Yeah.
I think so. Thank you, Dennis, and good morning, colleagues. On behalf of the co-facilitators, I warmly welcome everyone to this briefing by UN agencies on the WSIS+20 Overall Review. We thank all UN entities for joining and for their continued support to this process. Special thanks to UNDESA for coordinating today's session. As you know, the zero draft of the WSIS+20 Outcome Document was circulated with a letter from the President of the General Assembly dated 29th of August 2025. It builds on the elements paper prior to consultations, inputs from member states and stakeholders, and key UN reports on WSIS implementation. Today's discussion will help us better understand institutional arrangements, coordination mechanisms, and implementation frameworks across the UN system and their linkages to the Global Digital Compact. This session builds on the written inputs received by 3rd of October, the stakeholder consultations held on 13th and 14th of October, where some of the UN agencies also took the floor, second prep meeting on October 15th, followed by informals, and finally, further exchanges and bilateral during the ICANN meeting in Dublin last week. We'll proceed according to the agenda, starting with Topic 1. Topic 1, Capacity Development and Financial Mechanism for Digital Transformation. This topic focuses on how WSIS action line facilitators and UN entities help member states build digital capacities, institutional readiness, and enabling environments for inclusive digital development. It aligns with paragraph 61 of the Zero Draft, which requests the CSTD and action line facilitators to provide demand-driven policy advice, technical assistance, and capacity building within their mandates and resources. We will first hear from UNESCO, which coordinates several WSIS action lines, followed by other key agencies engaged in capacity building and implementation. And before giving the word to Mr. Cedric Wachholz from UNESCO, I would kindly remind all speakers to strictly remain to the 4-minute time frame of their intervention and presentations. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Mr. Cedric.
Thank you so much. It's nice to see you again, Inyan. And my thanks go to the co-facilitators and UNDESA colleagues for continuing to engage and giving us this opportunity to exchange. I would like to share 3 short reflections on capacity development under the WSIS framework. First, on how UNESCO builds capacities. Capacity building is one of UNESCO's 5 core functions, and a key way through which we assist member states translating their digital priorities into measurable results. We advance the Global Digital Compact commitments through the WSIS mechanisms, and in particular through the action lines we facilitate across global, regional, and national levels. First, at the global level, we work closely with ITU and UNDP and co-organize the WSIS Forum hosted by ITU. We contribute to the IGF and other thematic events, and in June we co-hosted here in Paris a WSIS event dedicated to building digital capacities of civil servants. And I will continue with this example because we have, of course, many, but this is a good one where the WSIS event, we launched the Spark AI Alliance, which now has about more than 80 countries which joined. And UNESCO aims to train 100,000 civil servants worldwide in the next biennium. For this, we also created a new online course with the Spark Alliance and the University of Oxford, which will start just next week. Already 10,000 participants have registered, and they will receive an Oxford University certificate on completion. At the regional level, we collaborate with UN regional commissions, the African Union with ITU, UNDP on AI and data governance. For example, through ITU's AI Academy, UNESCO and ITU train jointly policymakers from 30 countries in the LAC region in face-to-face sessions 1 week in CETIC using our Category 2 Center in Brazil there. This partnership functioned so well that we will continue activities in 26 jointly. And we have also joined hands with UNDESA and other UN partners on this topic. These efforts align with the regional priorities, the WSIS action lines, and with the implementation of the GDC objectives. At the national level, UNESCO's 194 national commissions, the 55 field offices, and over 100 centers provide the foundation for implementation. Let's again take an example. In Kenya, our $4.3 million project on digital transformation is improving institutional capacities and trains 20,000 public officials. And this is carried out with UN Women, UNEP, and UNCDF in close cooperation with the UN resident coordinator. So similar programs are underway in other regions through our WSIS roles. So taken together, these efforts operationalize 6 WSIS action lines UNESCO lead facilitates in key areas on e-learning, on capacity development, on access to information, on media, on culture, ethics, and e-science. So in summary, UNESCO builds the human and institutional digital transformation capacities on a global, regional, and national level across its 6 action lines. And through our WSIS cooperation, our digital capacity building strengthens inclusive, human rights-based, ethical, and sustainable digital ecosystems that bridges divides. So we stand ready to deepen this WSIS collaboration for a coherent and unparalleled follow-up in the WSIS+20 phase. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Waffles. Thank you very much. And I now give the floor to the representative of ITU, Ms. Ruth Subatuar. Ruth, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Enian. Good afternoon from Geneva, colleagues and distinguished delegates. ITU extends its appreciation to the WSIS+20 co-facilitators for presenting the zero draft and for steering this process in an inclusive, transparent, and collaborative manner. As the United Nations Specialized Agency for Digital Technologies, ITU has been deeply engaged throughout the WSIS+20 review, responding to the co-facilitators' calls and facilitating multi-stakeholder consultations, including during the WSIS Forum high-level events in 2024 and 2025. ITU's contribution to the zero draft have emphasized the importance of building on the strong foundations of existing WSIS processes and mechanisms to ensure efficiency, coherence, and the effective use of resources across the UN system. Since its origins at the 1998 ITU Plenipotentiary Conference and through the 2003 Geneva and 2005 Tunis phases, ITU has remained fully committed to supporting the WSIS process and continues to serve as its secretariat. The WSIS framework and its action lines are firmly embedded within the strategic and operational plans of multiple UN agencies. So, for example, ITU's own strategic, operational, and financial plans, as approved by its member states, are fully aligned with the WSIS action lines, with their impact implemented globally, regionally, and nationally. Over the past 2 decades, ITU has led the implementation of the WSIS action line C2, C4, C5, and C6, and co-led implementation of other action lines in close cooperation with over 50 UN partners. Through the WSIS Forum, WSIS Stocktaking, and WSIS Prizes, ITU has continued to foster policy dialogue, knowledge exchange, and capacity development. The WSIS Forum, co-organized by ITU, UNESCO, UNDP, and UNCTAD, has become the UN system's central multi-stakeholder platform for leveraging digital technologies to advance sustainable development, bringing together over 50,000 participants from more than 160 countries. The WSIS Stocktaking database, maintained by ITU since 2004, features over 19,000 initiatives led by governments, UN entities, and stakeholders. These initiatives advance the WSIS action lines, contribute to the SDGs, and from 2025 will also support the objectives of the Global Digital Compact, making it one of the UN's most comprehensive repositories of digital development practices. Since 2012, the WSIS Prizes, one of the most globally recognized contests, has annually celebrated 18 winners and 72 champions for their outstanding contribution to the implementation of WSIS action lines. ITU also mobilizes partnerships and resources through initiatives such as AI for Good, Partner to Connect, Child Online Protection, and Green Digital Action. And also in cooperation with our sister UN agencies, ITU jointly leads major initiatives, including the Broadband Commission with UNESCO, GIGA with UNICEF, and the Digital Infrastructure Investment Catalyzer with UNCTAD, which connects development banks, investors, and the private sector to promote resilient connectivity. In conclusion, WSIS remains a proven and enduring UN framework for advancing inclusive, secure, and sustainable digital development. ITU will continue to work closely across the UN system to strengthen coordination, enhance monitoring and reporting, and ensure that the WSIS framework continues to serve as the backbone for global digital cooperation and development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sida Butar from ITU, and I now give the floor to UNCTAD representative, Mr. Torbjörn Fredriksen. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Enyan, and big thanks to the co-facilitators and DESA for facilitating this dialogue. I also appreciate that you made use of the ANGIS network to reach out to the UN agencies for inviting speaking opportunities for this event. So the UN Trade and Development, UNCTAD, is co-facilitating together with the International Trade Center and the Universal Postal Union, the WSIS Action Line C7 on e-business. This is most closely aligned with the text in the WSIS+20 draft relating to the digital economy. Without appropriate and adequate measures, the rapid pace and scale of digitalization is likely to outpace the ability and readiness of many countries to adapt to digital transformation and its subsequent social and economic challenges. Against that background, there is a clear need to strengthen global efforts to build capacity and to secure more funding for such efforts. This was most recently acknowledged at the UNCTAD ministerial meeting, which was held only 2 weeks ago in Geneva. In its outcome document, the Geneva Consensus, all member states agreed to enhance support to developing countries in their capacity for electronic commerce, including through digital trade negotiation support, and in the assessment of their readiness for the digital economy and for harnessing gains from digital trade, including through e-trade readiness assessments, as well as follow up on the implementation of their policy recommendations. Our capacity building work is underpinned by measurement, research, and analysis that can support evidence-based policy making, including through the Digital Economy Report. From the perspective of financing, it is worth noting that the digital economy has resulted in huge value creation. For example, the world's 7 top companies by market capitalization are all digital technology firms. And those 7 firms are together valued now at around $22 trillion. Just to get an understanding of the magnitude of that, that's about 100 times more than the total official development assistance from all the OECD countries. The latest data on aid for trade suggests that commitments to the ICT sector in 2023 reached the highest level in absolute terms, $2.25 billion, which accounted for 3.5% of total aid for trade commitments. So it's still a relatively small share. The private sector, of course, plays a key role, especially for investments in digital infrastructure. However, for capacity building and improving legal and regulatory frameworks for the digital economy, official development assistance remains particularly important. Addressing weaknesses in these areas is also key for reaping benefits from the digital economy. In UNCTAD's Intergovernmental Group on E-commerce and the Digital Economy, which meets once a year, member states unanimously underscored the need to strengthen the international community support for developing countries in need, including by exploring new and innovative sources of funding to implement their initiatives related to the digital economy, aiming at inclusive and sustainable development. To summarize, the area of capacity building and funding is critical if we want to make the digital economy develop the inclusive and sustainable development gains that we are looking for. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Fredriksson. I now invite the representative of UNDP, Ms. Yu-Ping Chen, to take the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, co-facilitators, and to the Secretariat for inviting UNDP to be here today. I just wanted to make 3 quick points. Firstly, we agree with our colleagues that have spoken before about the value of WSIS and interagency collaboration. I just wanted to reinforce one particular point. The cross-cutting role of the WSIS structures with the UN's own internal coordination mechanism, the UNGIS, has been very useful in fostering this type of collaboration and multi-stakeholder partnership. So the way UNDP, UNESCO, ITU, and UNCTAD played leadership roles in both, having the regional commissions involved convening the WSIS forums, having ITU sit as secretariat above both processes, and the interplay with the IGF. The second point I'd like to make quickly, and related to this first point about how important WSIS has been, is really at this time of constrained resources for the entire UN system, I hope member states can see how to leverage existing proven networks and programs and initiatives and find ways to build upon this. And I think this speaks to these issues of digital transformation and building countries' digital capacities, which is at the heart of UNDP's work. We co-facilitate 3 WSIS action lines: capacity building, enabling environment, and digital cooperation. And we are the UN system's boots on the ground in over 170 countries and territories. So we work very closely with other UN system partners, as you've heard about, to directly serve countries on digital transformation and building this type of digital capacity building. For instance, we've supported over 100 countries now in building enabling digital environments, strengthening national digital ecosystems. Our digital readiness assessment led to the creation of Mauritania's first digital transformation agency, shaped Moldova's digital strategy 2030, prompting Antigua and Barbuda's commitment to fully digitalize public services by 2030, whereas Suriname and the Cook Islands in national digital action plans as well. Our AI landscape assessments, where we work in partnership with UNESCO, readiness assessment methodology, we've guided 10 countries and we have another 15 to go to launch by the end of 2026. This year, for instance, our Digital Capacity Lab has trained nearly 1,000 policymakers from 40 countries on topics ranging from design thinking and digital governance to AI and cybersecurity. The Capacity Development for Digital Transformation project that UNDP does with the ITU has trained another 300 professionals from over 60 developing countries, while our Data to Policy initiative has actually reached over 9 countries and hundreds of mid-level policymakers. We support over 25 countries in the implementation of DPIs and DPGs, legal ID in Mauritania, DPI strategy, Malawi, open source police systems in the Caribbean, and even now UNDP is co-hosting with ITU and World Bank the Global DPI Summit. Especially, I think it is critical, and the last point I would end on very quickly is this idea that on this issue of digital transformation support and financial mechanisms, as the UN's developing agency, we agree that this question about enhanced financial capacity and resources is at the heart for ensuring all the work that I spoke about before, and the demand that continuously is raised to UNDP from developing countries, meeting that type of demand with relevant and appropriate support from the UN system that's fully equipped and aimed at delivery has to continue. But it really is a matter of harnessing the financial resources that Torbjørn for UNCTAD had mentioned. And so at this difficult moment for global development, we at UNDP are already thinking hard about how to activate new ways of thinking and working. So for instance, UNCTAD has given statistics, but I also want to reiterate the importance of leveraging parts of the UN system that have a proven track record for this kind of integration, funding delivery, and programmatic work directly in country. So for instance, for UNDP, our comprehensive approach and broad portfolio of work has allowed us to think through how digital and ICTs is threaded through other areas, be it financing, climate, sustainability, prosperity, well-being, and governance. So this allows us to have more sustainable and long-term impact, and allows us to really think about how development dollars and development impact can continue even today. So colleagues might be particularly interested in our portfolio approach and systems thinking work, which was the subject of EcoSalt and the Second Committee's special meeting just a couple of weeks ago, which is now part of the UNDP Digital AI and Innovation Hub where we work. So we think that bringing all of this together through systems financing is critical. And we've done this in Zambia, where we advance system financing through AI-driven data for green investment, interoperable data systems, a national data sharing framework, and an AI unipod at the University of Zambia. I'll share some links in the chat to our systems and portfolios approach, but just to underline the fact that we at UNDP are fully committed to delivering on these key areas, and that we see the WSIS action lines and the framework as critical to allowing this kind of concrete delivery work to continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yuping Chen. I now invite the representative of UPU, Ms. Radhika Sibil, to take the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and greetings from Bern. The Universal Postal Union appreciates this briefing opportunity relevant to the implementation of the WSIS outcomes, and we are happy to share insights on the contribution by the postal sector and by the UPU to the inclusive digital society. The persisting digital divides demonstrate that despite all the efforts, digital transformations frequently benefit the easier to reach populations, inadvertently deepening inequalities. It is thus important to adopt an inclusion by design approach, which combines online service options with digitally enabled physical or in-person alternatives, allowing access to digital services even to less digitally connected individuals, such as people living in rural or underserved areas, women, marginalized communities, or MSMEs. Community anchor institutions, which enjoy the reach and the trust of local populations, including community centers, post offices, schools, or libraries, are well placed to provide digital services through multiple channels, including through their staff, offering a helping hand to less digitally savvy individuals. Embedding such existing institutions into digital transformation strategies and enabling them to provide services such as e-government, e-commerce, or digital financial services represents a cost-effective way of expanding the benefits of the digital economy even into areas where usually no other service providers are present. The UPU's Connect.Post initiative aims to leverage the digital inclusion potential of the extensive postal infrastructure composed of over 650,000 post offices. 71% of them already promote economic and digital inclusion for MSMEs through e-commerce, and 51% of posts foster social and economic inclusion through e-government services. Connecting all remaining post offices to the internet and transforming the postal network into digital one-stop shops would contribute to digital inclusion that leaves no one behind. Our research and engagement with member states indicate that the main barrier preventing postal operators from doing even more for digital inclusion is limited access to investment resources. Greater efforts are needed to ensure that post offices and other key institutions are systematically considered in national and international connectivity funding opportunities. In conclusion, the huge value of existing physical networks for an inclusive digital society should be reflected in the WSIS Outcome Document. In addition, multi-channel service delivery should be recognized as best practice to deliver digitally enabled services even to the segment of the population which lacks digital skills or affordable access to the internet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sibyl. And now invite a representative for UNDESA, Mr. Denis Suzar, to take the floor. Denis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Enian. UNDESA has played a continuous and central role in the WSIS since its inception. So we served as the Secretariat for the WSIS+10 Overall Review in 2015, and once again we are the Secretariat for the WSIS+20 Overall Review. If I can mention briefly about the WSIS framework. So in the WSIS action lines, we are facilitating 3 action lines. C1, the role of public governance authorities and all stakeholders in the promotion of ICTs for development. C7, e-government, and C11, international and regional cooperation. Under C1, UNDESA promotes policy coordination and institutional capacity building. We encourage inclusive stakeholder engagement to ensure that ICTs are effectively harnessed for development, specifically for ICT development strategies and e-government strategies. We work closely with ANGES, the UN system-wide coordination mechanism on information society issues. We regularly participate to annual WSIS forum, encouraging coherence and shared learning across the UN system. In addition, we have many analytical and technical projects where we help governments to design their digital strategies. Related to C7 e-government, UNDESA leads this action line through its long-standing global work on e-government. For two decades, even more, since 2003, we have produced the United Nations e-government survey. The survey assesses how public administrations use digital technologies to deliver online services, increase transparency, and engage people. It has also e-participation sub-index as part of e-government development index. And since 2018, we are also looking at the cities. So at the city level, we look at how the cities are delivering online services. Under C11, we've been the institutional home of the Internet Governance Forum for the past 20 years. We have provided secretariat support to the IGF, and there are many various capacity building activities within the IGF as well. So the IGF remains a cornerstone of the WSIS architecture and key platform for implementing WSIS outcomes. Related to measurement and statistics, UNDESA serves on the steering committee of the Partnership on Measuring ICT for Development, together with ITU and UNCTAD. So this partnership helps harmonize global ICT indicators and strengthen national statistical capacities. Beyond the WSIS framework, UNDESA serves as the Secretariat of the Science, Technology and Innovation Forum, STI Forum. And also, in addition, it supports the Technical Secretariat of the Technology Facilitation Mechanism, TFM, and the high-level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. Together, these platforms and the WSIS action lines also contribute directly to the Chapter 3 of the Pact for Future, which focuses on science, technology, innovation, and digital cooperation. So in closing, from the WSIS action lines, IGF, TFM, and STI Forum, UNDESA continues to advance a coherent, inclusive, and people-centered digital future. Guided by the vision of the WSIS, we work for coordination, and we will continue to collaborate with all UN entities and stakeholders and member states to help build a truly people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society. Thank you, Enian.
Thank you, Dennis. I now invite the representative of OHCHR, Ms. Birgit Kainz-Label, to take the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning, colleagues. I would like to thank the co-facilitators and the Secretariat of INDESA for the inclusive WSIS+20 process, which has engaged stakeholders, and for providing this platform, of course, to also engage with member states. Thank you very much. Needless to say that the impact that digital transformation has had on human rights over the past 20 years has been both positive and negative. Everyone talks about that. Of course, the impacts have concerned a wide range of issues, including non-discrimination, in particular, also privacy, data protection, freedom of expression, the right to work, education, and so on. As member states, of course, at many occasions have reiterated that human rights offline also apply to the online space, including in the Global Digital Compact, in many General Assembly and Human Rights Council resolutions, but also in other spaces. We think that it is key for OHCHR to strengthen the WSIS architecture going forward and bring in the human rights dimension across all 11 action lines. I would like to briefly mention that OHCHR has been providing capacity building support that could really strengthen the WSIS implementation also going forward if it's integrated in the WSIS architecture more centrally. What we have been doing is really providing expertise to governments in the development of policies and regulation related to digital technologies. No one knows all the answers, but we really have taken an approach to bring together the different players and try to find the best solutions. We have been providing support to governments, the UN system, and the private sector in terms of conducting human rights due diligence across the life cycle of digital technologies, as well as human rights impact assessments. We have helped develop guidance and have developed guidance ourselves and issued reports on a range of themes related to the governance of digital technologies, including data privacy, data governance, non-discrimination and equality, artificial intelligence, and many others. And of course, I also want to stress we have collaborated with the ITU and other stakeholders on integrating human rights or anchoring technical standards in human rights, embedding human rights in how technical standards are developed and deployed. With the support of member states and together with the UN system, we believe we can really meaningfully contribute to capacity development across all the action lines, and we want to be an active member of the WSIS architecture going forward. In terms of the UN coordination, I'd like to stress that the UN system, of course, in the current UN 80 initiative, needs to ensure efficient development, efficient delivery, and avoid duplication. So coordination across the UN system is crucial, and the basis for such coordination should be based on each entity's mandates and expertise. I'd also like to recall that OHCHR has the mandate to lead on human rights and can serve as a bridge between the international rights system and the WSIS architecture. We very much welcome the suggestion in the zero draft for OHCHR to be an active member of UNGIS, and really principles of human rights and including gender equality and so on are common across WSIS and the GDC and should be core principles that underpin our collective efforts going forward. Thank you very much. Sorry for going over time.
Thank you, Ms. Kainslabe. We heard the last speaker on topic 1, and I would like to thank all speakers for these valuable presentations. With this said, I now open the floor for questions or comments from member states, and please raise your hand or indicate in the chat. Dennis, can you help me if somebody will raise the hand or express an interest to speak in the chat?
Yes, I see Marvin from...
Yes, Marvin from the Mission of Uganda. You have the floor, Marvin.
Thank you, Enyan. Thank you for leading us this morning. And also thanks to the agencies that have so far briefed this morning for giving us a very clear view on their role in WSIS. My question is, what are the financial mechanisms available for implementation of WSIS, and also why is it that the Digital Solidarity Fund was not continued? Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Should we wait for other requests to take the floor, or should I give the floor to the interested agencies to respond to the question raised by Marvin?
Yeah, we have approximately 10 minutes. So if there's another question, we can take.
Okay, great.
But I don't see any, so
okay,
maybe.
So I pass it over to the agencies to respond to the question raised by Marvin. Thank you.
So if there's any agency would like to respond, please raise your hand. Yeah, I see Torbjörn from Antwerp.
Please, Mr. Fredriksson.
Thank you very much, Enyan, and thank you to Uganda for the question. Now, I just wanted to note that with regard to the Digital Solidarity Fund, this is something that we also highlighted in ANGI's joint submission to the elements paper for the WSIS+20 review. And we noted that that was a priority issue at the time of the WSIS, and the need for further funding for ensuring that digitalization brings the development outcomes that we want remains at least as important as the time. I cannot really give you the answer. Maybe colleagues from ITU UNESCO may have additional things to add here, but in whatever form or shape that we look at for funding the various activities that are needed to be addressed under the WSIS, we need to look for new and innovative ways of ensuring that sufficient funding is available. It doesn't have to be exactly under the format of the Digital Solidarity Fund as it was thought 20 years ago. We have different opportunities now today. But I think in most cases of UNGIS members, there are no dedicated funding to implement WSIS as such, but it is integrated into our overall mandates to develop digital for development interventions. But I would really welcome to hear from the other vice chairs from UNGIS.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fredriksson. I see now UNDP asking for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Facilitator. I actually do not have the background of the Digital Solidarity Fund, so I think perhaps some of the institutional colleagues or DESA might be able to give an answer to the distinguished delegate from Uganda. But I just wanted to sort of double click on what Torbjörn from UNT has emphasized about the importance of financing and funding, because especially, and I think I alluded to this in my intervention, at this critical time for development cooperation and development assistance, this is really where it is imperative to really focus on how we ensure the continuation of the programs and the work that the agencies are doing. I would also sort of say that I'm not sure the solution is to create new funding mechanisms, but rather what Torbjörn has said, to explore how innovative approaches can be built into the ways we are really trying to deliver assistance. I say this as an agency that is really focused on making sure that whatever funding or resources actually get delivered directly to communities, where sometimes perhaps too much time is spent on the creation of new things versus sort of thinking about how the existing ways of channeling such funding can actually leverage more innovative, public-private blended financing mechanisms or ways of accessing these types of funding. So just again, a plea to really think about what is the most effective in terms of allowing the maximum amount of development dollars to reach programs directly being delivered in country, and to really say that I think that should be the focus when we talk about financing. What are, instead of sort of creation of new things, the best ways to channel available resources of funds into work that is really ongoing by UN agencies. So be it sort of a renewed call or a better way of taking existing resources and sort of plowing them into the programs that have shown delivery, better monitoring and evaluation, that type of thinking. And that's really what underpins some of the system thinking, the work that I actually emphasized, where really we are looking at that more integrated approach to programming could be a way of really trying to address some of the critical challenges right now.
Thank you, distinguished representative of UNDP. And I now see the representative of UNESCO asking for the floor. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I will try to give a concrete example of some of the ideas expressed by my colleagues before. And I think we have all a common approach, and that is combining both our regular program funds we are implementing with some extra budgetary resources on different levels. So UNESCO is facilitating 6 action lines across our 5 different sectors. So we're covering education, but also culture, science, communication, information, social science, and ethics, and so on. And there, our members, everything has become digital and has become somehow also with this implementation. And we have member states who give us a core budget, and then we raise extra budgetary funds. And sometimes they really overlap, for example, also on country level and country level windows and opportunities. One example for such a UN cooperation framework are the SDG digital window funds, which were facilitated by, which were given over 30 million by the European Union, and then facilitated a UN cooperation for implementation of these digital funds across across different windows facilitated by UNDP and ITU, and then implemented by a number of UN agencies in different countries. And I think we are doing there a lot of the WSIS work very concretely contributing to the SDGs, and we have developed this metrics where we show how WSIS is contributing to the SDGs, is implementing the GDC, and these fundings earmarked for the SDGs are actually de facto also implementing these WSIS action lines in concrete country work. So there are these windows. They are not in every country where we are implementing. We're implementing, of course, our global work and our action lines across the different sectors. But then we have these different country opportunities and UN cooperation frameworks to make it very concrete in different countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cedric. I'll now see the representative of ITU asking for the floor. Ruth, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anian. Just to add from what colleagues already shared, so the core funding comes from the contributions by the ITU member states, which of course which support ITU overall activities, including the WSIS related work. And in addition, we also have the dedicated fundraising for the WSIS forum, where ITU manages the WSIS Fund and Trust, and that provides us with the financial support to run the WSIS activities, including the annual WSIS forum. And through this approach, it allows ITU, of course, to support capacity building, knowledge sharing, and the digital development initiatives. From the ITU's perspective, this financing digital transformation under the WSIS framework is a shared responsibility across the UN system. We have to also underline that WSIS is a UN process where multiple agencies contributing through initiatives tailored to the member states' needs. So I have already mentioned in the beginning the various ways where ITU mobilizes resources through its different various activities and projects with all the UN agencies. So this mechanism actually aims to reduce the duplication and to leverage expertise across the agencies and to provide this technical and the financial support to the member states. And of course, the goal is to implement the action lines and achieving the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In the meanwhile, we have received written questions from the colleague from the Philippines. Further to Marvi's questions and responses from UNCTAD, UNDP, and UNESCO, has there ever been a stock taking of existing financial mechanism budget lines that first contribute to WSIS action lines and second are available to developing countries in need? Thank you. If there are any agencies that would like to provide an answer from the question raised by the colleague from the Mission of the Philippines.
Yes, maybe I can start, Enian. So from UNCTAD, I think, I mean, the straight answer is no. No complete such mapping has been undertaken, but there have been, aspects of it covered. Like, for instance, ITU's Partner to Connect initiative is a way to come in with concrete activities that have been funded, but it's in no way complete. I mean, a lot of things in terms of implementing the WSIS action lines are not only by individual project or so, but it's really integrated into the budgets of the organizations that are implementing the WSIS in various ways. But in fact, there is a clear need for better measurement of all the development assistance that goes into the WSIS related areas. Even in the context of the OECD's reporting for ODA, there is a very weak way of measuring how much of the ODA is going to digital related activities. There, as I referred to, it's possible to extract the ICT sector in aid for trade aid and so on. But there is an unfinished business when it comes to actually looking at the financial investments that are being made, and also efforts to assess how much more money would be needed to implement what we want to achieve.
Thank you, Torbjörn. Any other agencies that would like to take the floor on this question? Great. I see no hand raised, so I would suggest to move directly to topic 2. Topic 2, system-wide coordination and WSIS GDC implementation architecture. This session focuses on system-wide coordination across the UN system and how WSIS follow-up can align with the Global Digital Compact. It reflects paragraphs 140 to 146 on the draft outcome, which emphasize the need for convergence between WSIS implementation and the GDC, highlight the role of UNGIS in mapping both frameworks, and recall the functions of CSTD and ECOSOC in review and guidance. We will hear from UNCTAD as chair of UNGIS, followed by the ITU, ODET, and others.
Thank you very much again. And just to draw your attention to the fact that UNCTAD this year is serving as the chair of the UN Group on the Information Society, UNGIS, with ITU, UNDP, UNESCO, and UNESCO as vice chairs. Earlier this year, UNGIS submitted an input to the Elements paper, which preceded the WSIS+20 Zero draft. And I would just like to reiterate some of what we said in that submission, that UNGIS can play an important role in the context of system-wide coordination. UNGIS comprises currently 31 members and 17 observers. And we serve as an interagency mechanism for coordinating substantive and policy issues related to WSIS implementation. And as an interagency mechanism, UNGIS reports to the Chief Executives Board of the UN. The WSIS+20 Zero draft does recognize UNGIS as the UN system's interagency stewardship mechanism for digital policy coherence. It also requests UNGIS to develop a joint implementation roadmap by 2026. This would mark an evolution in UNGIS' role, and the group stands ready to adapt its working methods as needed and as possible, I would say. UNGIS has enabled interagency collaboration in many diverse areas and brings together operational capacities across different sectors to help bridge digital divides and to support member states in advancing inclusive and sustainable digital strategies. Moreover, all co-leads of the subgroups under the Working Group on Digital Technologies, which has been tasked with supporting implementation of the Global Digital Compact and Chapter 3 of the Pact, they are either members or observers of UNGIS, so there is a strong overlap here between the GDC and the WSIS. UNGIS acknowledges the complementarity between the WSIS process and the GDC and the potential synergies that can be harnessed through closer alignment and integration as appropriate. It stands ready to facilitate this process through existing interagency structures. And before ending, let me also note that UNCTAD is also supporting various forms of coordination of the implementation of work specifically related to our mandate area, e-commerce, digital trade, and the digital economy. For example, even in this particular area, there's a great need for better coordination. Through the UNCTAD-led E-Trade for All initiative, 35 member organizations, both UN and non-UN, are collaborating with a common vision to enable more countries to engage in and benefit from e-commerce and the digital economy. And of course, in addition to co-facilitating the business action line under the WSIS, we are also co-facilitating two of the objectives of the Global Digital Compact, those on inclusive digital economies and on data governance. And we believe that it is really essential that we find the most effective way of bringing these two processes into one context so that we can have effective implementation throughout. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Torbjörn. I now invite the representative of ITU, Mr. Vladimir Stankovic, to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Lemce, and good day to all present in the meeting. For the last 2 decades, as mentioned throughout today's consultations, the World Summit has provided a robust architecture for digital cooperation. This framework has proven essential in promoting coherent and inclusive multi-stakeholder engagement on digital and emerging technologies. The WSIS action lines have also demonstrated their agility, continuously evolving to address emerging technologies and the changing digital landscape. As Torbjörn mentioned, we would also like to highlight UNGIS as the principal interagency mechanism for coordinating digital transformation for development. And with its members and observers, the group has demonstrated the effective coordination while respecting the distinct mandates and independence of its membership. It plays a key role in ensuring that digital remains a priority across UN development processes, including high-level political forum, ECOSOC Partnership Forum, the upcoming World Summit for Social Development in Qatar, starting today, Beijing +20, the UN Conference on LDCs, and other major processes and events. The ECOSOC resolution on assessment of the progress made in implementation on the follow-up of the World Summit on the Information Society recognizes the integration of the implementation of the Global Digital Compact commitments within the WSIS architecture to avoid duplication and ensure cohesive, consistent approach to digital cooperation. The same resolution requests UNGIS to develop a joint implementation roadmap as one of the key outcomes of the WSIS+20 review process. ITU continues to serve as a secretariat of UNGIS as a rotating chair and vice chair. The names of agencies as mentioned by Torbjörn, I will not repeat. And the group ensures to remain active, results-oriented, and visible. ITU coordinates UNGIS work streams, convenes high-level and working-level meetings, maintains the UNGIS portal, and facilitates contributions to the global and regional processes. Following the adoption of the GDC, UNGIS developed the WSIS SDGs and GDC matrix, mapping the Compact's objectives to the existing WSIS structures, mechanisms, and activities. This provides a structured approach for effective follow-up and implementation of the Compact. Building on this matrix, the GDC implementation map was prepared by the Working Group on Digital Technologies under the UN Steering Committee for Pact implementation. ITU co-leads this working group with the UN Office for Digital and Emerging Technologies. Other UN systems initiatives that promote coherence across the digital and emerging technology processes and involve multiple agencies with ITU as co-lead include the Interagency Working Group on Artificial Intelligence, co-led by UNESCO and ITU, the United for Smart Sustainable Cities initiative coordinated by ITU, UNEP, and UNECE, and the Partnership for Measuring ICTs for Development, whose current steering committee includes ITU, UNCTAD, and UNDESA. In conclusion to this particular topic, ITU stands ready together with the UN system to ensure that WSIS architecture continues to serve as the backbone of coherent, inclusive, and effective digital cooperation for sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stankovic. I would like now to invite the representative of UN Audit, Ms. Isabel de Sola Criado, to take the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm online. Thank you. And with your permission, I would like to share some visuals. I thought it might be helpful for the group to see some of the concepts that we're talking about on the screen in case you're a visual learner. So I'll very quickly bring those up. If you could let me know with a thumbs up. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you to the chairs for providing the space. I'm part of the UN ODET based in Geneva, and I wanted to address the question about how UN mechanisms facilitate digital cooperation. Our submission, ODET's submission, is informed by our experience of 1 year of building up a new coordination mechanism for implementation of the Annex to the Pact to the Future and the Global Digital Compact. We are also observers of the UNGIS. Last December, the ACABQ established as one of our office's 5-point mandate to facilitate system-wide coordination. This year, 2025, has been an enormous learning curve for ODET. We've had the pleasure of co-chairing the new working group on digital technologies together with the ITU. This coordination mechanism came into being at the request of the Secretary General. And as mentioned previously, it forms part of the arrangements of the Pact for the Future Steering Committee. On the screen, you'll see some of the details of where we stand today. There's over 35 UN entities that are members of the working group. We have 13 packed milestones under our responsibility, where the UN is in a lead position, meaning the UN is responsible for delivering on a task independently and wholly responsible, as well as 58 packed milestones that we support. The working group has been tracking SG reports, intergovernmental processes, resolutions, has delivered a GDC implementation map, and in general keeps up a frequent meeting rhythm for a year. The terms of reference of the working group also stipulate that it should expire in 2027. After almost a year's worth of collaboration and coordination, we are confident that the exercise of the working group digital technologies has delivered greater coherence and value for digital cooperation. Some of I think the main outcomes of our group are on the screen. At the principal levels, the working group has facilitated the setting of priorities. We sit together at the level of principals every 2 months under the Pact for the Future Steering Committee, which is hosted by the Secretary General, and it allows for the principals of UN agencies to discuss together, set priorities, ensure that their work is aligned, and by thinking together, they can better deliver as one. At the working level, we've gotten into a regular pattern of information sharing. One of the great outcomes of coordination is merely information sharing on initiatives, on events, on research. We do this in writing or through regular meetings. The working group has also been the channel through which to collaborate on mandated reports, and we're actively tracking progress on milestones. Here you see on the screen an excerpt of the working group digital technologies work plans. For each paragraph of PAC Chapter 3 and the GDC, we know what are the actions over 2025 and 2026 that we're responsible for. And these are also hosted on a public-facing tracking system that was set up by the EOSG. All of this, I think the effort has been very worthwhile, and we expect that it will continue to deliver results. I'd like to end on just 2 quick notes. Apologies for going over. It's important to know what coordination will not do or cannot achieve. Coordination cannot directly change the priorities of individual UN entities. Those are always established by the member states and UN entities directly. And coordination also, while it engages with stakeholders outside of the UN, it's primarily an internally facing function. UN ODET believes that the UNGUS process should likewise have a permanent secretariat. And we say this because we've come to understand that coordination is actually hard work. It needs focus, institutional memory, and resources. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. De Sola Criado. I invite now the representative of UNESCO. Cedric, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So how do we facilitate digital cooperation across the UN? And Isabel just mentioned a few approaches. For UNESCO, I have to start by saying that the key approach is an international multi-stakeholder cooperation approach, which our member state decided for us. So beyond the UN coordination, we have to first look at all actors and include all actors, civil society, as well as the private sector, technical community, international organizations, of course, included. And then secondly, in terms of the UN coordination, I think Torbjörn already highlighted well the work of UNGUS, which has really continuously demonstrated how our diverse mandates can really converge to build a fit-for-purpose digital cooperation architecture, while also contributing, of course, to the implementation of the Global Digital Compact, as Isabel just mentioned. And therefore, UNESCO is, of course, fully committed to continue and contributing and co-shaping with UNGUS the joint work and ensuring, therefore, also UN policy coherence as one mechanism. Another one is really also, again, building on the existing, our interagency work and the interagency working group on AI, co-led by UNESCO and ITU in the field of artificial intelligence, and as just mentioned by Vladimir. And there's, again, all UN agencies which have been building and working together since 2020, creating some good alignment. And I have mentioned already also other opportunities for cooperation, which are given, for example, by digital window or substantial funding, which is coming in. Now, the question was raised also on what principles should guide our alignment, including between the WSIS+20 follow-up and the Global Digital Compact implementation. And one is, of course, and UNDP has stressed it very well before, to build on the existing in the resource-constrained environment and do not create parallel structures to avoid duplication. And then Isabel has mentioned it too. On one hand, she said, okay, the heads of agency align priorities, but we have to respect, as she said later too, member states' decisions on mandates and priorities and results. And I can say from UNESCO's governing bodies that they set very detailed objectives and performance indicators, and we cannot simply divert from this our human and financial resources. And thirdly, I wanted to introduce a perspective of a human-centered and also a thematically sound approach, at least from a UNESCO perspective. And it is, of course, as Isabel just highlighted, if you have a 2027 deadline or timeline, you might concentrate on technologies like AI, like the 5th chapter of the GDC. But for us and for humanity and for sustainable development, it is really essential and useful to go along challenges and themes and topics as the action lines do. So we are facing challenges in AI, for example, in education, in sciences, and other parts, which can best be addressed actually through the AI and through the WSIS action line facilitation across them. Thank you.
Thank you, Cedric. I now invite a representative of UN International Computing Center, Miss Meredith Kravitz. Take the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you to the chairs, distinguished delegates, colleagues. It's an honor to take the floor today on behalf of UNICC. As we mark 2 decades since the World Summit on the Information Society and as the international community engages in the WSIS+20 review process and the Global Digital Compact implementation, one message stands out clearly. Digital transformation across the UN system must be coherent, coordinated, and connected. For nearly 55 years, UNICC has enabled digital interoperability, cybersecurity, and data management for now nearly 100 UN entities. In this new phase, defined by WSIS+20, the GDC, and the UN 80 reform agenda, UNICC is evolving from a shared services provider into a system-wide digital backbone, the operational bridge between strategy and implementation, between vision and delivery. The Global Digital Compact defines the principles for an open, inclusive, and secure digital future. WSIS provides a multi-stakeholder platform to advance these commitments, and the UN 80 reform shapes how our system will operate in the decades ahead. UNICC is uniquely positioned to connect these 3 agendas by translating normative commitments into practical, scalable, and secure digital solutions that serve the entire UN family. Through our mandate and infrastructure, UNICC supports digital public goods, data governance frameworks, and responsible use of technology such as AI, cloud computing, and cybersecurity services. We provide the digital foundations, interoperability, common platforms, and shared standards that enable agencies, funds, and programs to deliver results collectively and efficiently. At the heart of this transformation lies co-design and co-creation. UNICC's model is built on collaboration. We work with our partner agencies to ideate, prototype, and implement technology solutions that respond to real operational needs. This approach ensures that innovation is not fragmented, but coordinated, not isolated, but shared across entities and regions. Our scalability model allows solutions developed for one agency or region to be rapidly adapted and deployed system-wide, reducing duplication, accelerating time to impact, and ensuring cost efficiency. The same secure cloud, the same AI governance tools, the same digital identity layers, these can all serve multiple agencies with different mandates, but shared needs. In this sense, UNICC functions as the digital connective tissue of the UN system, a trusted enabler that delivers economies of scale, interoperability, and accountability. And by consolidating digital investments and offering shared platforms, we help the system do more with less and do it faster, safer, and more transparently. When we look at the financial mechanism supporting digital transformation globally, it becomes clear that coordination and access are as important as the resources themselves. UNICC does not typically manage funds, but we can ensure that every investment, whether from member states, development banks, or joint facilities, is translated into operational outcomes. We stand ready to help align existing mechanisms, ensuring they work in synergy and that implementation capacity is accessible to all entities, especially those in the field. In the next phase of WSIS implementation and in the realization of the Global Digital Compact, operational coherence will determine success. Norms and principles must be matched with the technical capability to deliver them. UNICC's experience, neutrality, and shared governance make it the natural backbone for this effort and the trusted digital partner for the entire UN system, and we stand ready to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kravitz. I now invite the representative of UN Women, Ms. Hélène Molinier, to take the floor. The floor is yours.
And thank you, co-facilitators and Secretariat for organizing this discussion. I think strengthening system-wide coordination is particularly relevant for the interlinked agenda of digital transformation and gender equality. That's why UN Women, we really see this opportunity to align digital cooperation, not just between WSIS and the GDC, but also with the broader set of global commitments on the topic, including CSW67 outcomes, the Beijing platform, recent NGAR or Human Rights Council resolution, or the SDGs. This year, we've done the concurrent reviews of WSIS+20 and Beijing+30. And so this has prompted us to examine how gender equality, women's empowerment, women's rights are reflected and operationalized within all these existing digital cooperation mechanisms. And it has led us to explore how we could develop a shared framework structure that breaks silos between these various frameworks and see how we can promote policy coherence and have a much more coordinated approach in implementation, but also in reporting. What was really interesting in reviewing all these framework, we managed to categorize some of the commitments. And what we really see is three interconnected areas that come up the most strongly. The first one is on governance. And we see that most framework call for integrating gender perspective into digital and AI strategies or policies, as well as supporting women's participation in decision-making at all levels within governance structure. Another set of commitment is around ecosystem. Almost all these frameworks, they put an emphasis on ensuring meaningful connectivity for all women and girls, on providing digital skills, delivering on inclusive DPI, or expanding women leadership in the digital economy. The last area where also we find in these frameworks a lot of strong commitments is on rights and the call to safeguard women and girls' rights and freedom in this digital age, and especially around the prevention of digital gender-based violence or the development of biased AI system. And so the language suggestion that we made as UN Women and what that we propose for this this WSIS+20 outcome document align with this existing framework. But we also try to trigger and move from aspirational language toward more actionable commitments around this topic. We feel that if we transform this analysis that we've done on all these commitments across framework into a unified roadmap, we will be able to leverage UN Women coordination mandate so that as a UN system, we have aligned priorities on digital transformation and gender equality across all these frameworks, that we can better coordinate our action in support of member state implementation, that we improve joint reporting, especially around the key milestones that we have in the next 5 years, and that we're better at tracking collective progress, especially on closing the gender digital divide. A joint roadmap also, we feel, will go behind advancing gender equality and will reinforce the implementation of other key guiding principles that we see across the text, especially around inclusive participation, around accountability, around the human rights design and deployment of digital technology, or how we use disaggregated data and better disaggregated data for evidence-based policy making. 20 years of WSIS implementation have shown that gender equality is not a side issue. It's really fundamental to realizing the initial vision and implementing all the action lines. And so with a joint roadmap that would build on the existing work of MDIS members and also members of the GDC working groups, we hope that we can turn all these normative recognitions that we have into tangible results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Molinier. We heard to the last speaker for topic 2. I would like to thank all speakers for the interventions, and I would also like to open the floor now for questions and comments from member states. Please feel free to raise your hand or post in the chat. I see no member state asking for the floor. Great. I would suggest we move to topic 3, follow-up, monitoring, and indicators. This session looks at how progress on WSIS implementation is tracked, measured, and reported, and how these processes can also be integrated with Global Digital Compact implementation. It draws on paragraph 129, 134, 136, 143, and 145 of the Zero Draft, which together call for action line implementation roadmaps, systematic indicator reviews by the Partnership on Measuring ICT for Development, and annual reporting by the Secretary General to the CSTD on WSIS and GDC implementation. The first speaker, CSTD, currently leads the system-wide follow-up to WSIS implementation and will open this segment. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you also to the co-facilitators for giving the CSTD Secretariat, which is actually part of the ANTAD Secretariat, this possibility to participate in this briefing. For the last 20 years, the United Nations Commission on Science and Technology for Development, which is a subsidiary body of the ECOSOC, has conducted the system-wide follow-up to the implementation of the outcomes of WSIS at regional and global levels under a mandate that was received from the General Assembly. This involves the gathering by the Secretariat of inputs from all the action lines facilitators, from the regional commissions, and also from other actors that are part of the WSIS architecture, such as the Internet Governance Forum and the WSIS Forum, which are critical contributors to the report. Those inputs are reported to the ECOSOC and the General Assembly through a Secretary General's report, which together with inputs from other actors and the Secretariat Research are discussed by member states representatives and other stakeholders, and I want to underline the multi-stakeholder nature of the discussions under the CSTD at the annual session of the Commission. This serves also as the background for the annual discussion of the General Assembly on ICT for development. The outcome of the discussions conducted at the CSTD informs the annual resolution by the ECOSOC on the follow-up to WSIS, which in turn provides feedback and guidance from member states about, inter alia, the implementation of WSIS outputs. If, as the most recent resolution adopted by the ECOSOC on recommendation from the CSTD, this is ECOSOC Resolution 2025/18, the GDC commitments were to be integrated into the WSIS architecture, this mechanism for reporting and follow-up could provide a very cost and time-effective way to bring to the policy-making organs of the UN relevant evidence on the achievements, but also on the challenges that need to be addressed in the broader sense of digital cooperation. This is an aspect that the global consultations that have been conducted by the CSTD as a contribution to the WSIS+20 review, and that has been made available to the General Assembly in considerable lengthy report, have documented the widespread wish among the stakeholders of the WSIS process to avoid a proliferation of processes and fora that are dealing with digital cooperation. And this is a proliferation that we see as hindering the participation of developing countries and their stakeholders in particular. A simple way to achieve this could be the inclusion of a specific item on the GDC as a regular component of the program of the CSTD's annual session, in the same way as the Commission currently hears from all the elements of the WSIS architecture, such as I mentioned before, the action lines, the IGF, and the WSIS Forum. In this sense, the resolution that I mentioned a moment ago, Resolution 2025/18, emphasizes the role of the CSTD in the follow-up and review of the GDC and the need to ensure the strongest possible convergence between WSIS and the GDC. It also calls for a strengthening of the CSTD as an outcome of the General Assembly's review on WSIS+20. I want to reiterate before ending my presentation that the CSTD remains available to member states and other stakeholders as a platform for digital cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez Sanz of CSTD. I now invite the representative of UNESCO to take the floor. Cedric, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And for UNESCO, the ongoing WSIS reporting, as just explained by Angel Fermantet, is really a comprehensive and also cost-intensive exercise. So we would urge to use this existing WSIS RC architecture as a backbone. The CSTD Action Line Facilitator reports produced annually go from CSTD through ECOSOC to New York and could include, as the CSTD Resolution 2025/18 just highlighted, all our work, including the GDC components. Now, Angel has just proposed one way of doing it. Another way could be to include some of the GDC components, which are addressed already in the action lines as cross-cutting topics. So all action lines probably could also report on AI-related work, as the 5th chapter of GDC does, and so on. And it could, of course, also have a separate as a part which Angel highlighted, which might for parts which are not naturally covered by the CSTD reports. So this would be a very feasible and good approach. One could, of course, also imagine as a different, as an additional approach that member states themselves submit a single integrated digital cooperation updates, which then serves the WSIS+20 follow-up and GDC tracking. I wish to just close by thanking our co-facilitators, Anjan and Dennis from UNDESA and UNDESA colleagues for organizing these opportunities, and for member states and colleagues for joining today and for this interactive exchanges. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Cedric. I now invite UN Audit Representative, Ms. Isabel de Sola Criado, to take the floor. Floor is yours.
Thank you again. I'll put on some images to accompany my remarks. I wanted to address the question of what reporting mechanisms could be useful to integrate and better align GDC and WSIS mechanisms. Our experience is again informed by the work plan and PACT implementation steering committee. Building on our work plan, we followed the EOSG's guidance to deliver a PACT tracking system, which indicates in great detail how each paragraph of Chapter 3 and GDC are being implemented by different agencies. Along the way, we built the GDC implementation map, which did a stock taking that the UNGUS brought together of existing WSIS projects and work streams that contributed in different ways to GDC implementation. You can see it again on the screen now, I hope. This exercise of building on the UNGUS matrix and our work plan went quite a long way to helping us understand how the two agendas are aligned. This is a view of the GDC implementation map where the largest column in the middle describes WSIS-related work streams and projects against GDC objectives and against upcoming PACT milestones. These views have helped us to publicly inform on how the PACT is being delivered. You can see here the new PACT implementation tracking system, which is available to the public. And we think that this is a very solid basis on which to think through some future WSIS reporting mechanisms. It's been an experience to build this together, and we've learned quite a lot. For the co-facilitators of the WSIS review, it's food for thought, the rigor and detail with which these maps were made. UN ODET suggests that if further mapping is to be done, it takes into consideration what has already been developed by many of the same entities. The UNGUS WSIS GDC matrix is part of the GDC implementation map and is therefore well built into the PACT tracking system. We suggest maybe that mapping going forward could perhaps be more granular, for example, by looking closely at distinct action lines and how existing WSIS projects contribute to those action lines across the system and to GDC objectives at the same time. We would suggest, however, to avoid breaking off GDC and PACT Chapter 3 monitoring from the system which has been built up from the SG's Office for PACT implementation. There's great value to be part of that system, and it does provide some ideas for WSIS review, future reporting and implementation in terms of its rigor, its granularity, and also its public-facing elements. Thank you to the co-chairs, and back over to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. de Soya Criado. And now I invite the representative of ITU, Mr. Stankovic, to take the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you again. As mentioned by my colleagues, the Tunis agenda, that is one of the basic texts of the World Summit on Information Society, calls upon the experience of ITU, UNESCO, and UNDP as lead facilitators of the WSIS process. This experience, we believe, should continue to be fully utilized in the years ahead. The existing WSIS reporting frameworks include, have shared it in the chat, the WSIS stock-taking database and the WSIS prizes, which provide annual reporting on ICT projects and initiatives that implement WSIS action lines, Advanced Sustainable Development Goals since 2015, and from 2024, support reporting on objectives of the Global Digital Compact. As the established mechanism for collecting and analyzing information on WSIS-related activities, the WSIS stock-taking platform serves as a global platform to track progress across all action lines, SDGs, and the GDC objectives. By aligning its reporting and data collection with the implementation roadmaps and indicators under the development, WSIS stocktaking can contribute concrete evidence and trend analysis to our results-oriented monitoring framework. In doing so, it helps ensure that progress under each action line is measurable, comparable, and linked to broader development outcomes, and thereby supporting effective evidence-based policy making at national, regional, and global levels. At the annual WSIS Forum events hosted by ITU and coordinated together with UNESCO, UNDP, and UNCTAD, the UN Action Line facilitators report annually on progress and present future roadmaps. Recent forums have provided a platform for coordinated follow-up and multi-stakeholder discussions, including on the implementation of the GDC. Following 2015, the WSIS and SDG matrix, developed by UNGIS members, mapped the implementation of digital solutions for sustainable development. In 2025, the WSIS GDC matrix was developed under UNGIS, integrating the GDC into the WSIS architecture, including its linkages with the WSIS Forum and the WSIS stocktaking database. The zero draft acknowledgement of NITU's role in the partnership on measuring ICT for development is welcomed, recognizing the partnership's important contribution to advancing reliable indicators and data for information society. My colleague Esperanza will delve more into following my intervention. In line with the zero draft, which calls upon action line facilitators to develop implementation roadmaps with clear targets, indicators, and matrix, there is a need to further strengthen the overall monitoring of WSIS action lines through a robust results-oriented framework. Such a framework with well-defined indicators and measurable targets is essential for tracking progress and support evidence-based policy development. In conclusion, the WSIS mechanisms already provide a coherent, inclusive, and data-driven system for follow-up and review. Building on these established and evolving mechanisms in integrating GDC within the WSIS architecture will ensure continuity, transparency, and accountability in tracking global digital transformation. I would also like to use this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Lamce, and the teams of the co-facilitators for moderating this session, and colleagues from UNDESA for organizing this important briefing for the member states. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stankovic. I would like now to invite the representative of Partnership on Measuring ICT for Development, Ms. Esperanza Macpanti, to take the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'm taking the floor on behalf of the Partnership on Measuring ICT for Development. So as my colleague Vladimir had mentioned, we had started the work under the umbrella of the partnership, which is composed of 14 international and regional organizations working on improving data availability in developing countries. And so in this exercise that we are currently undergoing, and which was also presented during the WSIS Forum in Geneva in July, the partnership is mapping the available indicators under the Partnership on Measuring ICT with regards to the level of detail and available indicators that could be used to monitor the WSIS action lines and also the GDC. So this exercise is something that we would like to conclude sometime in the beginning of next year. And here our objective is to first take stock of what indicators are already available and whether they're still relevant or not. And second is to identify indicators that are still lacking or agencies that are not yet members of the partnership, and to approach these agencies so that we could have a conversation as to what are the indicators we could develop or define so that we will be as inclusive as possible in monitoring the WSIS action lines and those that could help monitor also the implementation of the GDC. So with that, we will count also in the involvement of other stakeholders so that we can complement or supplement whatever information we have under the core indicators list of the partnership. Over to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Macpanti. We heard the last speaker on topic 3, and I would like to thank all speakers for their insights. With this said, I now open the floor for any final questions or comments from member states addressed to the representative of the agencies. I see no hand raised. Dennis, can you help me with the chat? You see, I see a question in the chat. I'm reading it. I would like to ask agencies if they think WSIS and GDC are fully compatible, or do they differ in some aspects? Yes, Isabel, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to kick it off from the perspective of Odette on this last question, if WSIS and GDC are fully compatible. I believe that GDC in many respects wouldn't be on the table without the WSIS agenda. From the get-go of the negotiations of the GDC, it was always clear that this more narrow compact was building on the technology neutral platform that had been built up over 20 years of the WSIS agenda. So the WSIS agenda about connectivity, access to information, the infrastructure, about harnessing the opportunities of these technologies for digital is, in a sense, it is the first phase of digital cooperation. And the GDC came 20 years later to add some very specific commitments of the member states to address digital challenges of our time. We can't have the GDC without the WSIS, I believe. And I think that the work that has been achieved this year by the UNGIS on the one hand, and also the Working Group Digital Technologies, clarified to a large degree in what way the two agendas are very compatible. I believe that the GDC, however, is different from the WSIS in two important ways. One is that it's not technology neutral. It speaks to specific technologies such as artificial intelligence or very specific issues, data governance, digital public infrastructure challenges, etc. And a second difference is perhaps less fundamental, but has taken on some importance, is that the GDC is also part of the pact and has become an important vehicle for impact of the pact. And I think that this last point is something that has been less well known in the digital cooperation circuit, to what extent the GDC interacts with other pillars of the pact, with youth, climate change, with peace and security. But it has been a fundamental component of the work done over the last year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Just to mention, the question raised in the chat was by my colleague Hendrik from the Mission of the Philippines. And now I see Torbjörn asking for the floor. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the question from the Philippines. No, but I think the way I see it is that the GDC tried to address some of the issues that are of particular importance for today's world of digitalization, and to ensure that the development objectives can be properly reflected in the work of the UN in this area. The documents of the WSIS have been extremely useful, and in view of the rapid technological changes that we have experienced during these 20 years, they have been unbelievably resilient in a sense, these action lines and the outcome documents. You should remember that in the outcome documents of 2003-2005, the word mobile phone was hardly used at all, just to remind us of how fast we have moved in 20 years. I think the content of the GDC is, of course, additional to what we already have in the WSIS outcome documents, but I think they can also be extremely compatible. So the big question for member state is to how best to harness the various outcome documents. How can we make it as effectively implemented as possible, and to avoid duplication and creating parallel systems? I think that is the key challenge for all of us, because this is becoming even more important in view of UN 80, as we are all facing shrinking resources in the UN rather than expanding resources. So we really need to think smart and find the most effective ways of achieving the goals that we actually have, that is inclusive and sustainable development from digitalization. Thank you.
Thank you, Torbjörn. I see Mrs. Stankovic asking for the floor from ITU. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just to add on my colleagues who already mentioned the compatibility, we do believe that WSIS framework and GDC are compatible and mutually reinforcing, with the WSIS process as proved platform to be an evolving process, integrating new digital landscapes and emerging technologies. And as I also mentioned, the newly adopted ECOSOC resolution on WSIS also recognize the importance of integrating the implementation of GDC commitments within the WSIS architecture to avoid duplication and ensure a cohesive and consistent approach to digital cooperation. This architecture, through its action lines and multi-stakeholder processes and established reporting mechanisms, already provides a practical foundation for implementing many of the GDC objectives. And to finish up, ITU, with our colleagues from UN, through UNGIST as well, continues to work to ensure the coherence between the two processes. And the WSIS frameworks and principles, again, important to highlight, can effectively be layered into the GDC structures, aligning the WSIS goals as they are. There have been many references in resolutions calling for this GDC integration into the WSIS architecture, and we continue to work with all stakeholders in finding the best ways to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stankovic. I now see Cedric from UNESCO asking for the floor. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much. A very short answer would be that, of course, they are broadly compatible, but they differ really in scope and maturity and in their institutional roles. So a careful alignment is really necessary to avoid duplication, as Torbjörn also highlighted, particularly in view of the UN 80. So for the purpose and scope, of course, WSIS provides today an established implementation architecture via its 11 or 18, depending on how you count it, action lines, the forum, the WSIS forum, the IGF, UNGIS, and the GDC is, of course, a newer political compact, which sets the high-level principles, and including some implementations through the WSIS mechanism. So maturity on the WSIS side, and perhaps more up-to-date, as Isabel also highlighted, more current digital technology references in the GDC. For us, it has really some important practical implications. So for us, UNESCO, WSIS is really the tested delivery channel. And we can use the GDC really to update some priorities with AI, DPI, and some inclusion aspects which existed already before, and then include them in the WSIS reviews, in our dashboards, in the IGF work, and thereby ensuring really compatibility without creating new silos. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Cedric. I now see UNDP. Ms. Chan, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Just very quickly to echo what other colleagues have said, that we do think that they are actually fully compatible. And in fact, the differences that Isabel and other colleagues have pointed to point to why the WSIS framework actually remains relevant and enduring, because rather than sort of update WSIS every time there is a new technology, the principles can be applied technology neutral wise. So for instance, when quantum becomes a thing in the next 2 or 3 years, we can still carry through the ideas of capacity building, enabling environments in these specific areas, and make sure that the WSIS framework still remains the means by which, as Cedric says, we deliver practically. Also, I actually think that the other difference that Isabel points out, that the GDC is linked to the Pact for the Future, is also perhaps another reason why it would be useful to think of WSIS as the means to deliver it. Because as Cedric has pointed out, that was a political document where there were a number of member states that abstained or had strong political differences given the contours of the pact itself. So I'm wondering whether, again, if we're focusing on delivery and implementation and that sort of longevity of translation into action, it would be useful to think of the WSIS framework as a way to avoid some of these potentially politically difficult concerns.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I now see Mr. Ayman from ESCWD. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Chair, and greetings to Ms. Ambassador. And we hope to see her in our consultation next week, the full consultative conference on the WSIS+20. And on my capacity as one of the co-facilitators of the WSIS Action Lines as a regional commission, and as also the vice chair this year for the working group on digital technologies, and also vice chair of the ONGIS, representing all the 5 regional commissions. We have a shared vision that the complementarity is guaranteed because of the experience we have in the regional commissions in supporting the follow-up, also supporting the implementation and reporting and doing the annual reviews since the inception of the process. And